PSI National Real Estate Exam newest. Question 1. A seller net $180,000 from a sale but has an outstanding loan balance of $240,000. What legal action may the lender take? Forgive the debt automatically. Pursue a deficiency judgment of $60,000. Foreclose on the new buyer. File a mechanic's lien. A deficiency judgment is a court order against a debtor for the balance of a debt when the security for a loan, the house, is sold for less than the amount owed. In this case, the $60,000 gap between the net proceeds and the loan balance remains the personal liability of the seller unless the lender agrees to a short sale waiver. Question 2. A seller has counteroffered a buyer at 90% of list price. Before that buyer responds, a second offer comes in at 98%. What must the seller do to safely accept the second offer? Accept the second offer immediately. Wait for the first offer to expire. Withdraw the first counteroffer before accepting the second. Accept both as backup offers. In contract law, a counteroffer is a rejection of the original offer and the creation of a new one. However, to avoid being in contract with two people at once, the seller must formally withdraw the outstanding counteroffer to the first buyer before the first buyer signs and communicates acceptance. Question 3. Which clause should a buyer include in an offer to ensure they can cancel the contract if their loan is not approved? Alienation clause, contingency, acceleration clause, habendum clause. A contingency is a condition that must be met for a contract to become legally binding. A financing contingency protects the buyer's earnest money deposit, allowing them to rescind the offer and walk away without penalty if they are unable to secure a mortgage. Question 4. Federal law requires that buyers of homes built before 1978 have how many days to inspect for lead-based paint? 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, 14 days. The Residential Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act gives buyers a 10-day period, unless otherwise agreed in writing, to conduct a lead inspection or risk assessment. The buyer also has the right to rescind the purchase contract during this window if hazards are found. Question 5. A group of brokers agrees to set a standard commission rate of 5% for all residents in their city. This is an example of steering, blockbusting, price fixing, redlining. Price fixing is a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Competitors are prohibited from conspiring to set prices or commission rates. Rates must always be negotiable between the individual broker and the client to maintain a competitive free market. Question 6. A commercial property loses value because a new highway has diverted traffic away from the location. This is an example of physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, economic, external obsolescence, internal depreciation. Economic or external obsolescence occurs when a property loses value due to factors outside the property lines. This is almost always incurable because the property owner has no control over the external environment, such as changes in zoning, noise from airports, or diverted traffic patterns. Question 7. At a closing on June 15th, the buyer assumes a mortgage where the seller already paid the $600 monthly interest on June 1st. What is the adjustment? Debit seller $300, credit buyer $300. Credit seller $300, debit buyer $300. Debit seller $600, credit buyer $600. No adjustment is needed. Because the seller paid for the entire month of June in advance, but will only own the home for half the month, 15 days, the buyer must reimburse the seller for the 15 days the buyer will be in the home, $300. This results in a credit to the seller and a debit to the buyer. Question 8. A homeowner pays a neighbor $9,000 for a permanent right to cross the neighbor's land to access a river. This is an license, encroachment, easement appurtenant, easement in gross. An easement appurtenant runs with the land. It involves two tracts of land, a dominant tenement, the one benefiting, and a servient tenement, the one burdened. Because it is a permanent right to use the neighbor's land for the benefit of the owner's land, it is appurtenant. Question 9. Which statement best describes the function of the Federal Housing Administration, FHA? It lends money directly to home buyers. It functions like an insurance company. It is a secondary market investor. It sets the national interest rates. The FHA does not build homes or lend money. Instead, it insures loans made by approved private lenders. This insurance protects the lender against loss if the homeowner defaults, allowing for lower down payments and more flexible credit requirements for borrowers. Question 10. A couple needs a temporary residence in a new city while they shop for a home to buy. Which lease type is most appropriate? Estate for years, percentage lease, month-to-month lease, net lease. A month-to-month lease, or periodic tenancy, provides the most flexibility. It allows the tenant to terminate the agreement with a short notice period, usually 30 days, which is ideal for someone whose timeline for moving into a permanent home is uncertain. Question 11. The amount of commission paid to a real estate broker is established by state law, the local board of realtors, agreement between the seller and the broker, the FHA and VA. Commissions are always negotiable. There is no standard rate set by law or any regulatory body. The fee is established through the listing agreement, which is a contract between the principal, seller, and the broker. Question 12. A principal broker is legally responsible for only their personal sales, the actions of the seller, all real estate activities of their affiliated salespersons, the buyer's financing. Under respondeat superior and state licensing laws, the principal/designated broker is responsible for supervising all licensed activities of the salespersons and associate brokers registered under them. Any error or omission by a salesperson is legally tied to the supervising broker. Question 13. Two buyers obtain a $178,000 mortgage at 6.5% for 30 years. Using an amortization table, what is their approximate monthly P&I payment? $980, $1,125, $1,245, $1,350. Using a standard amortization factor for 6.5% over 30 years, approximately 6.32 per $1,000 of loan amount, 178 x 6.32 equals $1,124.96. Rounded to the nearest dollar, the payment is $1,125. This payment covers both the interest for the month and a portion of the principal.